So never underestimate the power of an individual. Never say that I, as a young student, will not be able to make a difference in the world. No, you can make a difference. And my
Mr. Tawfik Hamid is an author from Egypt. Hamid migrated to the United States, where he has lectured at UCLA, University of California, Los Angeles, Stanford University, University of Miami, and Georgetown University against Islamic fundamentalism. He currently serves on the advisory council of the Intelligence Summit, an annual conference on security. Hamid has also appeared on television programs including Fox's Glenn Beck Show, Fox News Channel, and the BBC's Religion and Ethics. So please give your undivided attention and a warm welcome to Mr. Tawfik Hamid.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's my pleasure and honor to be with you today. Today I'm going to share with you some of my personal experience that led me to be in a position to affect, even at small extent, the policy of the United States with the issue of radical Islam. That is my area of expertise. I'm basically a medical doctor, and I was radicalized when I was in my medical school back years ago in Cairo, in Egypt. And after I have been radicalized by a radical group, I decided to leave them and turn against radicalism and terrorism. This was around 40 years ago. This was too far before September 11th and before all what we see today from this problem. Today I will share with you some specific things that I felt that could be useful for you for when you think about how I as an individual or we as a small group can affect public policy at big scale. When I talk about public policy in an issue like radical Islam that happened to me, but we can apply the principles to anything else. I realized that it's so important to try to work at all levels of the government, not to be satisfied only with speaking, for example, to people in the Congress or the judicial branch or executive branch. All of them must be included in the process of creating public policy. And we as people here can affect and influence their decision via using some logical and reasonable approaches. When we talk about the approach, I think sometimes we as individuals think, how can I, when I am a single individual, how can I make a change? How can I influence the public policy of a big country? Is this possible? In my opinion, the best model here is to see previous experience of individuals who believed in themselves, who believed in their cause, and they managed to change the world. And the best hero here is Martin Luther King Jr. And with his example and his model, I can see the power of even one person who believed in something and who managed to change the world literally in a positive way. So never underestimate the power of an individual. Never say that I, as a young student, will not be able to make a difference in the world. No, you can make a difference. And my son usually used to sing the song of Michael Jordan, I believe I can fly, I believe I can touch the sky. And this is not literally possible, but it gives us hope that making a change is not impossible. The other experience I realized when I worked in the area of public policy is we have constitutional limitations. So sometimes you can ask for something, but the Constitution doesn't allow you to do it. In my area or my field, it was very sensitive because I'm talking about radical Islam. And the moment you mention Islam, then you go into the area of religion. And then they tell you everywhere, oh, we are the US government, we do not deal with religions. So it was very sensitive that what I did here is I tried to move the problem and the phenomena of radicalism to the area of the thinking process rather than religion. Because religion, two people can have the same religion. One can be very peaceful, the other one can be very damaging, and he can become a terrorist. So you have really two extremes here. And then it comes to my mind that the problem could be in the process of thinking. And since I tried to shift the problem to something that can be within our constitution, not religion, here the process of thinking, things started to change and people start to listen in a better way. Particularly when I started to give them some form of solutions. It's always nice when we talk about public policy to try to find and suggest some solutions for policymakers. Here in this example, for example, I created specifically a form of education. I called it One Humanity Education. And this was to show that the process of thinking of an individual, such as absolutism, when I think I am the only one who is right and you are absolutely wrong, can make a person very radical at the end. If you analyze every radical person in the world, you will see them thinking that I am the only one who have the truth and everyone else is wrong. So I created a model for education called One Humanity Education, where, for example, I show this image and I say to the person, how do you describe this? They say, oh, it looks like a devil or Satan. Then I say to him, if someone on the other side is saying it is an angel, how do you describe this person? He say, oh, he is absolutely wrong, or she is absolutely wrong. It is a devil. Then I took him to the other side and I show him the same image from the other side. It looks like this exactly. So I moved the whole phenomena of dealing with radicalism from the theological area, religion, the difficult part with the US Constitution, to the area of the thinking process, and I tried to offer solutions. If you could offer solutions to the policymakers, this can make significant difference as well. With the approach, also using a scientific way of thinking. Do you hear me clearly? Just want to make sure. Do you hear me clearly? Yeah. With using a scientific approach also when you deal with public policy makers, it's so important, because sometimes some people go and say it's all Muslims, for example, are radical, or all Muslims are peaceful. That was not a scientific approach. Scientific approach means that we have to have classification. So you don't need to generalize to everybody. You can't say a group of people are bad or a group of people are evil. There are some people are good, some are bad. So trying to be specific and do some sort of classification when you speak to public policy makers, that can help them, because the moment you generalize a problem to everybody, the moment they start to say, no, we can't really listen to this. We need to be specific about some specific group of people. So I divided, for example, the Islamic culture into 5 categories. Culture, Muslims and ritual Muslims, who are just very peaceful and lovely people. Theological Muslims, who would like to implement values, for example, that may contradict the constitution, but they don't use violence. Radical Muslims who use violence against others to force their views, and then the terrorists who explode themselves. So I try to show some form of categories. Like in chemistry, you have to put the metals into categories. So trying to speak about public policy, you need to really to try to, if you are accusing some group of people or you are talking about some issue, you need to be very specific, not generalizing everything. Also using powerful logic. I remember one day I was sitting with one of the judges here in Washington. He was the head of the Court of Appeals, Federal Court of Appeals. And we were talking about trying to limit the hate speech in certain areas, like it was in mosques, for example, or here or there, or any place, hate speech as a concept. And we had some form of discussion whether hate speech, can I stop you, or I'm not allowed because you have freedom of expression? Is there limits? Here, do you have a question? Ah. So is there limits for freedom of expression, or it's just unlimited? So shall I allow, for example, a leader in some religious place to tell people to hate others, to discriminate against others, to dehumanize them, and allow him just because of freedom of expression? So we had such lovely discussion together, and I gave him a very logical example that made him at the end say, oh, this was logical. And it started to affect his way of thinking, which will ultimately affect the public policy of the country. He was in a very high ranking position. I gave him the simple example, you know, the breath test for alcohol. I said, while you are driving a car, I said to him, when we measure the blood alcohol level in breath test and it is high, we punish the individual even though he didn't do any accident, without doing any crime, without doing any accident. Just by having high blood alcohol level before doing the accident, we punish him because he is having more possibility of causing an accident at the end. So I try to apply the same principle logically to the hate speech. When you have hate speech to young people who can be influenced by a charismatic speaker, many of them can go and do crimes because you give them lecture to hate the other. So he thought about it and said, yeah, that seems to be logical. We are really punishing them before doing any crime, not as a preventative measure. So you don't need to wait for the problem to happen. So I try to work at different levels here. I spoke to Congress people. I write op-eds. I have a book called Inside Jihad. Whenever I have an opportunity to speak to people in the judicial branch, I do. I used to be the keynote speaker in Princeton University for one of the leading like events for judges from all over the country. But maybe some people may say, but we didn't have the chance you had to speak to these people. Then how can I now as individual make a difference? The easiest way now, it's in our hands. You know, when some video or YouTube channel goes viral, or a TikTok or whatever, you can now share information, like information, and put information on social media and share even with a small contribution. Having the big vision in front of you, that is great. Believe in yourself that you can achieve. It's not impossible. And at the end, realize that you have power now that never existed before in the world. When you have one single piece of information that can circulate globally, that can affect every person in the world, then you realize that you can affect public policy at very high level, because at the end, when things go as trend, for example, or they go viral, it affects our public policy at all levels. The Congress people will listen to it. People in the judiciary branch will listen. Executive branch will listen. So you can really reach many people now with ideas and beliefs that can affect public policy, not only in the United States, but globally, because what happens here can affect the whole world. And finally, thank you so much, and I will be so pleased to receive some questions from you. I realize the time is limited, so please go ahead. Yeah.
How would you think we should go about limiting hate speech in high forms of government? Because in this modern time, it's very normal.
Yeah, that is really a very good question. How to fight hate speech while at the same time respecting freedom of expression. I think hate speech is a general term. As long as we are speaking in general terms, we will never find solutions. That's why one of the things I did when I came to Washington, D.C., for the purpose of countering radical Islam, this was the main reason I came to the United States. One day I remember I was sitting with two people. One of them was talking about an organization that's radical and promote hate speech, and the other one say it's not radical. Then I asked them, "Do you have any definition for radicalism?" And it obviously they didn't, and that was one of the problems. When we say hate speech, it can be something so ambiguous. Yes. It can be very ambiguous. It can be very difficult to define it because what you think it's hate, maybe someone else may think it's not hate. That's why it might be important to define metrics or metrics for the problem. Like with radical Islam, it's general word. How can you say this is radical Islam or not? That's why I created a test, for example, called the ABC's test for radical Islam. There are specific metrics that you can say if someone promoted this is radicalism because it can cause physical damage to others, not emotional, not psychological, because emotional and psychological damage is relative. But physical damage is something that you can clearly define. And the test was based on A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I said A for apostate killing. Apostate is someone converted from Islam to other faith. And according to the traditional Sharia laws, he should be killed. Then that is physical damage. You are encouraging people to kill an individual. B, barbaric treatment of women, like beating women, for example, and justifying this. C, calling Jews pigs and monkeys. And D, declaring wars on non-Muslims to spread the religion. That is physical damage to other. You encourage killing of other. The F, fighting Jews before end days and killing all of them, like what's happening here in the Middle East when Hamas people, for example, justify killing all Jews in their constitution. That's hate speech. That's clearly you can put in metrics and say this can end in killing of other human beings. And G, gay killing. So it's not simply here I am putting metrics that are relative. They are specific metrics that you can define and you can say this is called hate speech. Anyone who will promote stoning a woman to death or killing someone because he converts or killing someone because of sexual orientation, this has to be prohibited by law. So, but if it is relative, I think with the simplest answer to your question is defining metrics to hate, not just putting a word. Defining metrics can help everybody here. Yes, absolutely. And so I may add some few things that I didn't discuss here, but coming back to the area of do you study here public policy only, or you study everything here? You study so public policy is part of the. So the main issue here is that maybe we as individuals have difficulty to imagine that we can influence public policy at big scale. But I believe, even with, as I mentioned, with one single person, things can expand now in the area of the internet and social media. One idea can spread, and we can really make a change and difference in the world. I remember when I was in my medical school, when I was young, I used to speak about radical Islam when I turned against it. But I never imagined that one day I will be speaking, for example, in the Pentagon, in the Congress, on CNN and Fox News and all these big channels. I never imagined this. But it was a belief in my heart that I can make a difference. And making a difference is could have been very difficult in the past. But in the meantime, I believe making a difference is possible, particularly with the social media and the internet. We can really make significant difference to the world. Maybe with your age, in your age, it's maybe sometimes difficult to think how can I influence the public media. But in my opinion, or the public policies of the country, I believe with the opportunities you have now with the social media, you can really at least like or share or add some opinion to what you believe in. and believe that you can make a difference even with this minor change. It's like drops of water that can come together and create an ocean at the end. So never underestimate even the drop of water, the like or share you do with something that you believe in. And remember that when you create good basketball or games or whatever, but even giving small attention to things that can affect the future of the community, the future of the whole country, which will be reflected on me at the end, and my friends and my relatives, my family, it's worth it, even if I give 1% of my time and dedicate it to this issue, this factor. Any think about any possible question? Yes.
What does public policy mean to you?
She was asking, what does public policy means for me? For me, public policy is simply the ability of the public to influence the government to make correct public policy decisions for all of us. It shouldn't come only from the government. It should be influenced by all of us. We are all participants in making the public policy because affecting us, affecting people in the government. So it is our ability as humans to really work together to do something to inform the government about things, to raise issues to them, for example, bring new ideas on their table so they can create correct public health policy for the whole country. This is what it means for me.
Good radicalism.
That's very wise and intelligent question. He's asking if I'm against all forms of radicalism and if it is sometimes maybe good to have some level of radicalism. I think if you understood radicalism as a strong belief, like in general, I'm against the concept of radicalism. But when you become a radical in a sense or in a way that you insist on establishing fairness and justice and love and humanity and respect for others, great values that doesn't harm anyone, that's universally accepted by humans as some good values, I think to be insistent or to be persistent and insist on your views, and maybe some people can call you a radical, but that's very different from radicalism that cause harm to others or cause damage, physical harm to others. So in general, I don't like radicalism because things are relative. I remember one day I was speaking in Doha, Qatar, and I was in front of group of students, university students, and I took a photo with my cell phone to the group or to the auditorium. Then I asked someone on the other side, please, can you take a photo?
What inspired you
To what? Yeah.
I said, what inspired you to become interested in your career?
That's excellent question. Thank you. Thank you. I will answer this question just after completing this story. That someone on the other side took a photo, and I showed them the two photos, and the point here was to show them that relativism or in other words absolutism is bad. He thinks he is 100% correct, like the photos that I just showed you or the image. And if I thought I'm 100% correct, then I'm starting to become a radical. So in this sense, when radicalism represents absolutism, I think there is something wrong here. You need to really rethink. And at least before believing that you are 100% correct, you have to investigate and check other thoughts and views before judging something like this. The question here is very nice. What made me interested in this area? I think the what I have seen around me in my life from changing when I joined the radical group when I was young in the medical school. In 3 months, I became a radical. I want to travel to do violent jihad in Afghanistan. and I would have been in Tora Bora with the most extremists in the world if I didn't change. So when I changed and I started to think back, I felt it's my responsibility really to try to do something to protect other young children or young people from going into the same path. I was lucky not to continue in it. Otherwise, I would have been a terrorist by now. But so I felt it's a big responsibility on me that I live the experience of radicalism, and it's so important now to do something for others to protect other human beings from going into this dangerous area.